Hello, it's great to be back. Been away for a few weeks in all sorts of interesting exotic places around Africa, but no place quite like home with you two bozos. But I must say the shock is rather moderated by having Libby with us. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
As usual.
So, do you guys have a name?
What do you mean?
Like, okay, Friday drinks, right?
Yes.
Three fellas. But do you really have a name? What do people refer you to as? I mean, what? Friday drinks?
The Three Musketeers.
The Friday drinks guys.
Yes.
Oh, Friday drinks guys.
Yes.
That sounds boring.
Do you have a better name?
The Three Musketeers.
I don't have a better name, but I'll think of one.
Okay.
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard, though, trying to include someone who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
But I'll try.
We have a permanent aberration on the show.
You can ignore it. Anyway, chatting with you on the phone, you encouraged me to look for something when I was in Kenya.
Yes, I did.
And I did. I found it.
Well
And
done,
now,
George.
I don't know what to do with it.
Drink it. We're here to drink it.
Would you like to tell us more?
Yes. So, Leleshwa is actually made in Kenya. So, how apt. You've been traveling to Kenya, right?
And other places.
And other places, but let's focus on Kenya.
Yeah.
And I think the last few episodes, there was, examples of Kenya being thrown in. So maybe it's time we actually had a product from Kenya, but in the drinks part. So pretty exciting. And I'm sure you'd wonder, how can they make wine in Kenya? So you do have that whole escarpment, the Rift Valley, on the Great Rift Valley. And because of that escarpment, they've got the high altitude. I think they go over 2,000, maybe just below. And that gives them the good climate to have good acidity in the grapes. And you're able, because with this particular variety we're having, acid is a biggie. You really need that good acid in the wine. So pretty exciting. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is somewhere on the west of Nairobi. So you
I know, I got it in a bottle store.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's good enough. But we can still have a taste of it. So yeah, it's a Sauvignon Blanc. It's a 2021 vintage, so very fresh. You are highly advised to have this type of grape variety young, unless if it's made in a style to age. But we're lucky because that's more refreshing. It's a bit chilly, but refreshment, does it really fear anything in terms of weather?
No.
I don't know. On a hot day, do you still have hot tea?
Yeah,
So
you do. Okay.
So we can have
Same kind of thing.
We can have a chilled wine.
we can have a chilled wine, yeah. And it has been, well chilled. So I'll give you the honors to open that for us.
Okay. And
Tinashe?
what are you having?
Yeah, I'm having
We
an
must ask
afternoon tea. Yeah,
We have to humor you.
I'm having an afternoon tea by Fine Tea. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, sorry, the name is Afternoon Tea.
Yes.
Oh, the name!
I was wondering what was going on.
So I actually named
It is actually called afternoon tea.
I actually, was about to make a comment and say, well, the next thing after that, you're going to say high tea because of the
Well,
afternoon
yeah,
tea
where's the
aspect.
cake and biscuits?
And the little sandwiches, the triangular sandwiches.
We're actually trying to lose weight, so
Oh my goodness. So yeah, the color, look at that color.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spoken before about the whole color spectrum and how the younger it is, the lighter it is in color. And we clearly can see that it is light in color. Yeah. And then to the nose, oh wow. You're really getting all that lemony, limey. But once I say that, then you actually do get that. So I think it's a waste with you guys for me to actually even go down that road.
So can we
Maybe we should just look at it and drink it, right? Oh yeah,
I think that's a good
sure.
idea. This is as good as wine from anywhere in the world.
If I gave this to you blindly, and by blindly, you have no clue what it is, would you know? Would you even think it's from Kenya?
No.
what are you trying to say about Kenya?
No, I'm not trying to say So no, but I mean, look, there's a misconception, we're human and we do that. I mean, if you look at South African wines, that's really pushed to us. And that's all we have. Look at the market here. The percentage of wines that we have locally, that is what, 95, 99% of South African wines. So if I was to do a wine tasting locally, I mean, as in Harare, and you did it blindly and people have no idea what they're drinking, and I throw one of these in, would you even guess? You would always just think South African
South
wines.
African.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think it's a function of the marketing spend.
True.
So there's a perception out there in the world that French wines are the best because they really jump up and down and make a lot of noise about.
I thought it was just the champagne and not necessarily the wine.
Oh, they've
Well,
got good
in-
wines. Look, they do
in
jump
general-
around for something. They do have good wines.
But I think that over the last maybe 20, 30 years, there are a lot of other regions in the world that are not as famous for wine that also make exceptionally good wines.
It's not better.
Like Chile, like Argentina, like Australia, like California.
South Africa.
And,
Yeah.
and there's
Absolutely.
there's some old world countries like Croatia, countries in Europe.
Yes. That's
and
still
Italy
Romania.
and Spain.
That actually make good wine as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not the case that, you know, if it's from France, it's good or better than something that's from, you know, Kenya or a place that's less well known. But in the public's imagination, you know, South African wines are better than Kenyan wines, for example. But that's not necessarily true.
Well,
I think
I
that-
suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I suppose when we talk wines in Africa, do you ever think of any other country except South Africa? For
Yeah.
goodness sake,
I
people
would
don't
have
even
thought,
think of Zimbabwe, and we're here
Morocco, Tunisia.
because you don't drink wine. Trust me. the people who actually drink wine,
should
they
have you-
only
we should
think
have-
of
we should
South
have you more
Africa. No, on a serious note, they only think of South Africa.
Oh,
But I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
but
again,
there's
I mean,
lots of countries in Africa that still make wine.
you talk about the Kenyans making this on the Great Rift Valley,
Yes.
2,000 meters altitude. Most of our country is close to 2,000 meters altitude. We are also on the southern edge of the Rift Valley. Why aren't we making this just? What's the place just above Mzarabani? Mount Darwin.
Mount Darwin?
Why can't we make something similar in Mount Darwin?
We can, George.
So why aren't we doing it?
Nobody has just taken up the initiative.
Interesting, but okay.
Well,
also
I don't think.
proximity to South Africa. I would have thought, you know, the economy is South Africa is a big wine producer. So in our proximity to South Africa, they will always produce at way cheaper prices than us. Why
No,
not
that's
just
not
why is it
necessarily
not
volume
true.
thing?
Do you know that Israel exports olives to South Africa?
But
So I don't think
Israel exports wine.
I don't think I
I
don't
don't seem to understand your argument.
because they grow them in places closer. But the point is, if you make, so I don't think proximity is the issue. I think the challenge with our wine industry
Well, it
is
is
that
with a lot of our products, right?
but let's talk
so
about
we've
wine.
also
But
got
we're
to
talking about wine.
remember, yes, we did.
No, and I'm saying don't
we-
be. It can't be wine in particular, right? Don't look at the peculiarity, but just look at the economies. The economies is we are next to a big producer.
But
So certain
wine
things-
is not a volume game. It's not. It can be, but it's not purely a volume game.
Okay, so
We're a
apart
mass
from,
market.
Okay, apart from just the whole altitude, so that is just one of the things which we made mention. But there's also more. There's the soil. So yes, the terroir, or terroir, it's meant to be French, but that also you cannot grow grapes in the poorest of soils and think you'll make good wine from it.
We've got great soils in Mount Darwin.
So for grapes.
Well, it's not poor soil.
Well, I don't know, but all I know is you've had people trying to grow grapes in Hippo Valley, in the Lowveld. You've had people try to grow grapes in Escondini, in different places, Gweru, wherever. So as long as those soils, you've got the right soils as well. So you may have the altitude and not have the right soils, but there's a lot more that needs to be in sync to actually
We're
produce.
we're better off producing berries than wine.
What do you mean berries? As in the fruit
Okay,
or just
we're going down a rabbit hole now.
table grapes?
But okay, let's go back to the South Africa-Kenya story, right? So I've been on the plane quite a bit, been all over Africa, been trying to run. As you can see, there's a little bit less.
Oh, you're back to running.
I can't see, but it's good that you're back to running.
I'm trying to run. And as I've been running on pavements,
Sorry, didn't he say something to you about running?
Yes, he said he's back to running.
No. Before this. Well, way before. About you and people you were running with and how it's a waste of time to
I've
be
never
running
said that.
after. 90 kilometers of running, and
You
I
did
don't know,
actually.
I
She
eavesdropped.
watched
I watched. Yes, I must have watched something that you said
3
that.
seasons ago. That's exactly what
Okay,
you
so
said.
it's craziness about running
3 episodes ago.
running 90Ks. Yes, that's crazy. But I'm a respecter of runners, and I'm trying to become one again. Anyway, can I?
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
may.
But thank you for that intervention, maybe.
You're not coming back. So one thing I noticed in my travels is how most African countries are becoming better places to live. The roads are getting better. The pavements are getting better. This I noticed it when I was running.
Okay.
Less and less potholes. There's actually a sidewalk where there wasn't one before. Also notice the level of power cuts and so on. And yet, when I spent time in Joburg recently, the opposite is true. I noticed more potholes. A particularly irking thing when you're running is missing manhole covers.
Okay.
Like they are
Sheesh.
running and then there's a hole in the middle of the pavement in Sandton.
Goodness.
And what is this telling us about the development of the economies? And so is it purely about one country just being better run than another? Has it got something to do with the evolution of independent
But
African
I think
states?
that your argument should come with.
I haven't made an
lot
argument. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, but even that question, I think that you need lots and lots of caveats. One of which is in Nairobi, it could be very much curated. So a lot of the things that African governments understand is where there are lots of tourists, those are the places that they would do up. And then the rest of Nairobi does not in any way look like that. So we need to be very careful how you place your argument. Whereas Johannesburg, you might have a point, but I'm just saying that you need to make your point with lots and lots of caveats.
Okay, I appreciate your point. And if we extend it and we go beyond pavements and pothole and missing
And I also
manhole
think,
covers,
just to add to what Tinashe is saying, you know, if you're running in Sandton, you have this. I think you have a cognitive bias in that you don't expect to see any potholes. So if there is one, you're much more likely to notice it. Whereas if you run in another, you take them for granted. They
And if you're a tourist, how many of you are going to be running when you travel somewhere?
Okay.
So you're probably going to be driven by different.
you guys are nitpicking today. Point is, and
No,
I
we're
think-
not.
I think
We're just saying
no,
that
but
you are.
and you as an economist, I think. Okay, no, I won't even go down that rabbit hole because then you're just gonna nitpick some more. But point is, we know there's more and more roads in the rest of Africa. We
I
know.
could make the argument for you, with a better example.
Okay, go ahead.
So what they use is electricity. So the amount of households.
If you guys would let me finish a sentence, I was going to talk about power cuts.
Let me make the argument for you because you wasted 5 minutes of our time.
You guys keep interjecting.
Kenyan wine.
I'm just anyway. Yes, carry on.
Maybe there's something to it about why people are not taking Kenyan wine. But
But
anyway,
how is the wine? No,
It's good. I like it actually.
It's actually
all right.
more than decent.
So what they do is they take satellite photos of around the world and they look at just how well lit
Lighting,
an area is, and they use that as a proxy of GDP per capita and also economic activity.
Okay.
So if you were to take that and you look at Harare, for example, you find that it's usually perpetually in darkness.
Yes, it is.
So Nairobi, surprisingly, will be more lit for longer than Johannesburg at this particular point in time. So it shows you that there's something that's happening. There's a lot more economic activity in Nairobi than there will be in Johannesburg.
And if you take the same picture year after year, more and more of Nairobi is lit, and
Then
less and
Johannesburg
less of Joburg is lit.
is lit.
And
Yes.
that's my point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not potholes.
Okay,
That's
fine.
what I'm just
okay,
arguing.
let's use
Actually,
lights.
there are better examples.
Okay,
and
we
they
accept.
speak to
Those are the extras.
Thank you. We accept. But my question remains. So is this telling us that? Is this telling us something about how African economies must develop? The
I
trajectory
think
they
it
must
speaks
take.
to. So I'll give you another analogy that's usually used again in economics, and they use it when you're looking at China. That you miss the nuance of economic development when you take a snapshot of anything. It's always better to use a movie as an analogy. So when you look at Kenya, let's look at Kenya in 1990. perhaps it was 2 out of 10 households that were lit.
Yes,
And
I
then-
can think of a Trump word to describe Kenya in the 90s.
No, let's not use that.
The producer won't let me say it. But as a movie, when you look at it as a movie, so if we were to look at a snapshot of Nairobi and Johannesburg, one could think that Johannesburg is better as a snapshot. But when you look at the movie in Nairobi is advancing, and you can actually see the changes. And the movie in Johannesburg is regressing.
Okay.
I think that's the point you're making. So you've got something like this happening, where Nairobi, you can see where the movie is going, and it's better and better and better and better.
Yeah.
And you can see what's happening in Johannesburg. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
And what's interesting, Tinashe, we like picking Nairobi, and even the politicians have now picked up on the Kenya example. But I was also in the Congo, and the same is true in the DRC. You get the sense that this country is moving forward.
Absolutely.
Where
If you look
in
at
the
a
DRC?
movie,
I was in Lubumbashi and Kinshasa.
I think you're right, because what we tend to do is to take snapshots. And there's something that's going around, especially in the UK, where, I thought this was a fantastic anecdote about how the UK, if you were to compare the GDP per capita of UK to the United States of America, it will be slightly more than Mississippi.
Yes.
Right?
Per capita,
And-
yes.
Per capita. And people forget this. It's not to say that the UK is not great. It's great, but when you look at it as a movie, it's actually been regressing. Right? It's not moving forward. And that's its big quagmire. That's its big problem, is how do you change the script?
UK is now comparing itself to all the black slaves they exported to America in the Mississippi.
I don't know about that. But the point is, in economics, we better understand. Our understanding of economics is better when it's a movie than when it's a snapshot. Because snapshots, people will just fly into Johannesburg and think, oh, what a beautiful city. They fly into Nairobi and they're like, maybe not mine, which is okay as anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
But from a movie perspective, you can see what's happening in DRC, that actually there's development, it's moving forward. And what's happening in Johannesburg is the only movie that I've seen.
It's actually
let me finish.
because we're getting. The
I
producer wants us to go. So the point is,
give a disclaimer, a caveat, that there's only one place where a snapshot is exactly like the movie. Malawi.
Anyway, I'm I think 1/16th or 1/32nd Malawian, so I won't entertain these jokes about my homeland.
I mean, Dar es Salaam.
But anyway,
Dar es Salaam is
okay,
developing.
can we answer the question though?
Okay.
Which is before we wax lyrical about Africa, which is, what is this telling us? Because if we look at South Africa going the way it is, and we look at the rest of Africa going the way it is,
Some of the rest of Africa, not
Yes, some.
Can we read something into that? And as you say, what does it mean to us?
Yeah, what does it mean to us coming back home?
Can we plot our own trajectory from that?
Well, I think what it tells us is that the world is dynamic, the world is changing, and that so if you were, as an economy, if you were a champion or if you were a giant 30, 40 years ago, it's not necessarily the case that that's true today. And if you project into the future, 10, 20, 30 years, the way the world looks today is not necessarily what it will be then. And so leadership matters, and you have to actually be alive to the way the world is changing if you want to continue to grow and prosper.
But I thought you were going to highlight.
Thing as well. Just going back to the whole movie thing and coming back home. Is it not also about perspective? How I view it. George has just spoken about
I think
running and
perspective. So to give you perspective, because I actually disagree with both points that George and Rufaro are making, that actually Africa as
I've only
a
been
whole,
asking questions, but anyway.
Africa, well, very leading questions, but Africa as a whole is actually regressor. So if you look at the number of people under poverty in the next decade, there's only one place where it's increasing. Everywhere else around the world is actually declining. But in Africa, it's actually going to increase. The number of poor people under extreme poverty is actually going to increase. That's Africa. But to your point, which is perspective, is actually in a sea of poverty, there are these bright spots, and we tend to pick the bright spots.
So how does that disagree with Rufaro? Rufaro is saying attribute that to leadership.
Well, your leading question was, we're progressing. What's the movie looking like? And I'm saying, actually in Africa, it's regressive. It's more like Johannesburg than it is more like Nairobi. It's regressing. As a movie, it's regressing. But within that regression,
do you agree?
Bright
Do you agree with him that it comes down to the leadership?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
And how we handle
I can agree with that.
what the world is throwing at us and how the world is evolving.
I think I can accept that.
So can we go for a break now?
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
What are you drinking anyway?
Fine tea.
We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Hangi. Apana kana chikafu.
Hey, indlala hey. Bazasibulala ngendlala wanhlaba.
Andipho ukubikileko.
Asam.
Asabe.
Imukubike makabeji.
Ngifuna usibulalisa ngendlala eh?
Kwethe sekuru.
Bayeza bayenyarazo bayathatha imali. Bayabuya kathesi nje so.
Ngoyida kunyaraza.
Wonke sekuru.
The Sawira Connect card, connecting you to an easier and more convenient way to receive your funeral grocery allowance. Wipe away delays. Say goodbye to payment interruptions with just one simple swipe, 24/7. The Sawira Connect card, made for your convenience. Anytime, anywhere. Access made easy. For more information, connect with us today.
And we're back. Are you feeling suitably refreshed?
I am.
Have you powdered your nose?
Yeah, I think the makeup lady did a fantastic job.
And
That's so sexist.
Well, she is a lady, right?
Oh my goodness.
anyway,
Do you have a problem with that?
I have no problem, but why do people who do makeup, why are they considered as just ladies? Why did you rush to just ladies?
She is a
When
lady.
there were men as well doing your makeup. So,
well, I think they'll pay more attention to you. But
oh my word.
But anyway, we're actually on a serious note. This week we lost the Harare Metropolitan Province, the Minister for the Harare Metropolitan Province, Oliver Chidhawu. But I think for us on the show, it's not so much about a political leader's demise as much as it is a role model,
An entrepreneur,
an icon of youthful leadership. Many people might not remember that he was Harare's first black mayor at the age of 29, before he then went into business and went into various businesses, including
Banc ABC,
Kuchi Construction, Banc ABC, Heritage Insurance, at some stage owning a construction company in the UK, and he had various businesses in Zambia and other countries. He owned Pelhams for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sad to see him go.
Yeah, and he's one also of the few individuals who managed to succeed in both business and politics in our country. That's you don't have a lot of people who have cut their teeth in the business world and succeeded, then crossing over to serve in government. And I think one of the reasons why we have such bad outcomes in terms of economic policy is because you don't have a lot of people who've been on the other side who understand business. You know, I get the sense when I look at a lot of government pronouncements that they're very suspicious of the business world, that they don't trust free markets. And I think a large part of that is because most of the people on the other side setting the policy have no experience running businesses or being involved in business. And I suspect that as long as that continues to be the case, we're going to have these challenges in terms of sound economic policy. So it is doubly sad that you have somebody who was serving in government with a lot of private sector experience who is no longer with us.
Yeah, sad. And yeah, go well. It brings us to the end of an era, the Banc ABC era. A few months ago, we bade farewell to Doug, and now his co-founder has also left us. And speaking of ends of chapters, in the same week, we've seen Antony Mandiwanza stepping down as the CEO of Dairiboard. He's been running that organization for our entire adulthood.
Is that a sad thing?
Very good question. Is it a sad thing or not?
Well, I think the Dairiboard story is a good case study in privatization of previously government-owned enterprises. So if you look at the Dairiboard story and you contrast it with a lot of the parastatals that were never privatized, it's basically speaks to the private sector doing much better at running these institutions than government. And he was one of the pioneers in that, because he ran it when it was owned by government, and he managed the transition to the private sector. And on balance, I think it's a business that's done well. I don't know whether you have an opinion on this, Tinashe.
I think that it's more an example of just how old we are. We're now middle-aged, so we tend to be very attuned to changes in the weather or changes in the seasons. And what George is actually saying is that
I asked a question. I didn't make a statement.
There's a switch in an era, and what Mandiwanza represents is a particular era, which was these relatively educated individuals that after independence became heads of these enterprises. And he's been there I think he's been a CEO for 25 years, and he's been with Dairiboard since 1979.
Without betraying our ages, there are people on this set who were not born when he started. I'm not looking at anyone in particular.
So I think what it speaks to is that era has ended. You guys may not, for some of us who are biblical scholars, this idea of generations is usually quite spelled out in the Bible, where it says there was the generation of so-and-so, and it came to an end. And I think that what we're experiencing, especially with the death of Mugabe, I would specifically look at the death of Mugabe, and what's happening now, this CEO change that's happening, is just chronicling the end of an era. And what we're going to experience in the next 5 years is a new era or a new generation sprouting out of that.
And which is not necessarily a good or a bad thing. But
it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's an event, but
it's
a
thing.
Exciting as well.
I think that there are reasons for us to be excited and there are reasons for us to worry.
True.
So if you look at Mandiwanza and his era, Duna at
Zimbabwe,
their era, and Cotco is another one. It was a lot of optimism, especially around privatization. So these were organizations that went through the first phase of commercialization. People have forgotten this word, that we would actually look at these enterprises and we would say, well, they need to be commercialized, which is they need to be profit-making, from just being purely
government
departments to let's actually commercialize them and let them be profit organizations, and then from there we privatize, right? And there was a lot of optimism. Now the sad bit is we're looking at the next 10-15 years.
Yes.
There's less optimism. I would say there's more pessimism.
What happened to, just to segue a little bit, what happened to the privatization that we were supposed to experience post the coup that was not a coup? Because there was talk of privatizing a lot of the parastatals.
It actually speaks to it's impossible for the new dispensation or the second dispensation to push privatization because they're not of that era. They come from an era where it was not private. We didn't privatize.
But sorry, I've got a question. What's left to try to privatize?
Oh, there's a lot.
No, okay, name one.
So GMB, Tel One, Net One.
Calm down. Calm down. Calm down, guys. You are finance people. You're entrepreneurs.
RBZ.
You are these clever business people. So you show up.
We can go on. Yeah.
You show up with your suitcase full of money, and somebody shows you NRZ and says, "Please buy this."
Oh yeah, there are many people who wanted to buy it. In fact, there was a consortium that wanted to.
And we've had many. We've had Turks. We've had diaspora.
You're going somewhere with this. You're going somewhere with this.
There's nothing there to buy.
What do you mean? There's nothing there to buy?
We have to go to the commercialization stage again.
No.
You think somebody would pay for
NRZ? Put it on auction?
Yes.
You'd pay for NRZ?
Yes.
By the money, yes.
What?
I'm glad none of you guys manage my money.
Why wouldn't you buy it, George?
What's there to buy?
The railways.
There's nothing there.
No, it's there. It just needs rehabilitation.
Which will cost you as much as a new one.
And it's perfectly fine. It's got infrastructure that's already there.
The question, George, is you've got a rather dark view that if you take over any of these assets, you won't be able to turn them around. If you have the capital and the technical know-how and the management expertise, why wouldn't you be able to make money?
And
all I'm saying is that they're better homes for money.
Is it your money?
But in this case, it's
is
just
it your money?
NRZ. If you've got the money, why wouldn't you buy it?
Yeah. Is it your money?
Anyway, I'm clearly in the minority here, and we're going down a rabbit hole.
I think there's something wrong. There's something with the water in the DRC. It's problematic.
Or the Kenyan wine.
I've been drinking beers all over Africa. I'm not sure I'm even sober.
Just out of curiosity, because these institutions have been hemorrhaging the fiscus for the longest time. Why do you think that our government is reluctant to let go of these money black holes?
I would like to know the answer. So as much as I don't think they're saleable, I think worst case we should just shut them down.
No, but why are they?
And so I don't know. I don't.
NRZ owns some, No,
I'm saying worst case. Worst case. I'm just saying continuing to pour good money into.
I think that's true for something like Air Zimbabwe.
Okay, but I'm actually agreeing with you guys. Don't attack me. I'm agreeing with you that we shouldn't continue funding them from the fiscus.
Yeah.
At the very least, if we can't sell them, is just shut them and forget about them, because they've been costing us for 20 years, if not longer. Your question is why?
Why are they holding potential?
No, okay, but you guys are all over the place. Is this how it was? I feel sorry for poor Ranga.
I think the problem is you.
But the problem is
no. He asked a question, and you are now being him and asking your own question.
I think they missed you, George.
I think so too. So his question is: so why are we holding on to these things, and why are we not doing something about it? I wish I knew the answer.
That was a rhetorical question, George.
No, it wasn't rhetorical. I actually want to understand.
No, it's a rhetorical question.
So you're telling me what his intent is?
Yes, because it actually doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. The point is, we have no business running businesses if you're a government. CSC, NRZ, EZIM, it doesn't matter. But what matters, and this is to your point about why we didn't privatize, is because our mindset is still stuck in the socialist 1980s. Now, the benefit of what's happening, especially with these CEOs retiring, is perhaps, that's where my optimism is, perhaps.
Right? You are capable of optimism?
Perhaps. What's going to happen is we'll have a change of mindset, because that's the important thing we need. These guys are incapable of thinking outside of socialism, the 1980s socialism.
I don't know if
perhaps we might have a glimmer of hope if the new people, a new era starts where people do not even think of running NRZ. Whether it's profitable or not, they are not in the business of running businesses. And I think Margaret Thatcher provides a good anecdote.
Are you really going to quote? Okay.
Yeah, no, because she came in at a time when Britain was entirely nationalized, or to a great extent
Yeah, okay.
nationalized, and she broke that. The coal miners who had 4 working days.
Can you quote the thing that you're going to quote? You said you were going to quote Margaret Thatcher.
No, I said I'm going to pick an anecdote.
Yes, okay.
Using Margaret Thatcher, that what we need is an era of an Iron Lady that can actually change.
I think actually when you mentioned Margaret Thatcher, that you're going to mention that she is the Prime Minister of the UK. That actually was sorry.
No more wine for you.
She actually ended the UK's exchange control.
Okay, are you about to go down a different segue?
Yeah,
no.
Liberalized the world.
She liberalized
Britain. She liberalized.
Okay, but let's go
but
back
it's a change of mindset, right?
Yes.
That after 2 decades of a bad mindset, you then have a leader who comes with a new mindset. So that's where my glimmer of hope.
Well, the glimmer of
hope. That's the glimmer of hope. The glimmer of hope is perhaps we can have a new mindset that can change.
I don't know if I'd be as categorical as you, but I think I would support you, Tinashe, in saying we do need a change of mindset. Yes. So Dairiboard was more or less twins with Cotco, wasn't it? And they were privatized at about the same time, went through the same route, and when it, for whatever reason, no longer suited, Cotco was renationalized. And renationalized through the back door. It was interesting. I don't know if you noticed in the paper.
No, I think your synopsis has some big holes in it. So Cotco was doing just fine for the longest time until the government decided they were going to make some regulatory interventions, which basically killed Cotco. And when Cotco went bankrupt, they didn't renationalize it because there was a change in thinking around reversing the initial privatization. They actually destroyed it until it was, on its last legs, teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. And then they decided, okay, fine, it can't go bankrupt. We're going to take it off.
I think we agree with each other. You just use a more colorful, longer version of the story. But the point is, the government stepped in and took over Cotco.
Yes.
After some time. And this is why I agree with Tinashe, that it's a mindset and a philosophical issue that the government
should never have.
Actually thought it was their job. They thought it was their job to get involved in cotton pricing. They thought it was their job to save Cotco. And I don't know if you noticed this week, all of a sudden, Cotco remembered that it's a listed company and must make trading updates to its shareholders. I don't know if you guys picked it up. It's a listed company with shareholders who still hold share certificates, hasn't had an AGM, hasn't published accounts, nothing for several years. And has suddenly remembered that this year.
Well, look, as a company, it really is a zombie.
Yeah, but it's a private company. It's got shareholders. It's supposed to have a board. It's supposed to do all these things. It's a company.
So it's a mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset that we think
it's alive in name only.
No, but you're missing the point.
You're missing the point.
I agree with George. That the state actually just walked in and said, "We're taking it over." And there's people there waving their share certificates and saying...
And he forgot that there are processes. It's like old mutual shareholders, similar thing, right? That they woke up one day and said, we're delisting it as the state. But he forgot that, somebody wanted to pay school fees, right? With those old mutual shares.
Well, I think that's a bad analogy. But
okay, that's a moral issue. But
no, it comes back to the mindset.
Yes.
That actually a state that sees itself as the grandfather of everything that's actually happening is problematic. That the state must see its role as purely governing, as purely coming up with the laws, a regulator, purely that. That Cotco has come up and has done some weird things or whatever, it's got nothing to do with them. That old mutual that people are trading, it's got fungibility and it's trading however it's trading, the government has got nothing to do with that. As long as Old Mutual is following the laws of the land, it's got nothing to do with the government, with the state. And that's why my glimmer of hope is perhaps for the first time, because a lot of the people who are in government were there pre-Thatcher, right? So they were...
No. Thatcher was...
Not a lot.
Thatcher was there before we were an independent country.
But I'm saying a lot of the people were born, they grew up, they matured at their prime They were under pre-Thatcher world, which was extremely nationalistic, nationalized everything, 4-week day for mine workers, that sort of thing. Very paternalistic.
4-day week.
4-day week, yeah. Very paternalistic. And we're saying that perhaps with the end of this era, we will find new government officials that are not paternalistic.
But look, I want to push back just a little bit and, make the case that people who have been subscribers to a certain dogma or school of thought, even for decades, they, on the historical record, have changed their minds and moved their country in a different direction. And you're going to hate my example, but it's valid for the point that I want to make. For the longest time, throughout his incarceration, the ANC's official policy on mines was to nationalize them. And when Mandela was released,
yeah, you're right. We're going to hate this example.
Yes, that was official ANC policy. They were going to nationalize all the mines. Then he went on a roadshow to attract investment into South Africa, and he was quizzed about this. They asked him, why do you think it's a good idea to nationalize the mines? Why do you think that the mine worker and the average South African is going to be better off? And he had conversations with people about this, and they convinced him that he was wrong on the nationalization.
We're not going to go down this rabbit hole because.
But surely I deserve the right of reply and a rebuttal to this.
All right, and then we're going for a break.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. The ANC is made up of numerous parties, one of which is the Communist Party of South Africa, and they would take a very communistic view. But you had COSATU. COSATU would have a different view of how it would play out, right? And COSATU was the biggest constituent than the PAC. Then
PAC is not part of ANC.
No. Yeah, the Communist Party was still during those days. Mandela's views, right? Mandela always said, you know what? I listen to the party and what the party.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, you guys are going down a rabbit hole.
So I think it's a lot more nuanced.
And I think the point that was being made, and let's go back to the point. The point that was being made is that there is an opportunity. As we're experiencing a generational change of guard, there is an opportunity to also change our policies. And where I think both of you would agree is that when there's a change of personalities, it's easier to walk away from positions. True. And what I like about what Tanasha was saying is there's a window opening in corporate Zimbabwe as we say goodbye to a generation of this generation that is in their 60s and 70s, and we say there's nothing funny about people being in their 60s and 70s. You'll be one day too.
Who knows? And
we say welcome to the 40-something-year-olds and the 30-something-year-olds, and maybe the 50-year-olds. And there's a time for us. It's an opportunity for us to rethink policy in corporate world and in parastatals. I know where you'd like me to go, and we're not going to go there too. But from as far as business is concerned, we can press a reset button, can't we? And to a large extent, I think that responsibility falls on the younger generation. And where I thought you were going to go when you said you see, I can't remember the words you used, something positive and something.
I said a glimmer of hope.
A glimmer of hope. He's not capable of optimism.
I think we also tend to forget that at one point the outgoing was the in thing.
Exactly, they were the incoming. Yes.
He was the new generation, so this is why it's exciting. But we were excited then. I'm excited now.
But I don't see us.
There was a sea of enthusiasm then.
Yes.
But that sea is not there anymore.
Yes.
It's dried up.
And yes.
But there's this glimmer of hope.
There's
a glimmer of hope
that excitement as well.
Exactly.
On that.
But for me, the concerning factor for our generation, in the 80s, these guys, they had this hope, they had this common purpose. At least in business, I'm not seeing it in our generation.
This idea of a common purpose, again, is a very socialist idea. And we need to run away from these notions of common. They didn't have common ideas.
I hate agreeing with Tinashe, but
they didn't have. And it's a very colored view of history. It was a contested history. And then let's make that very clear. But, and I think maybe that's the point you're trying to make, is that there are certain individuals that change the course of history. That we can look at, if you look at the Boka, for example, yes. They changed the course of history. If you look at the bankers, they changed the course of history.
If you look at Strive.
If you look at Strive, he changed the course of history. And really it's incumbent upon our generation to change the course of history. And that's, to me, that's the glimmer of hope. That actually, perhaps there's this glimmer of hope that as there is a change of guard, there are certain individuals that can change.
New Bokas will rise.
That can change the course of history. Yeah.
I think Ranga's going to kill us if we don't go for a break. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
At a funeral in the rural areas, there is a lot of work to be done. Fetching water, firewood, stones, bricks, and other things to save for Tonde. Tonde is sitting down where the elders are sitting. The young men are not happy with this because Tonde is the only one who knows everything that needs to be done as the mourners wait for the body of the deceased that is still to come to the rural home. The elders are keeping him close and constantly consulting him.
Listen, Zingai. You see, among all these old men, nobody knows how your late brother's funeral policy works. Tonde here is a friend who works at Nyarazo. The friend is helping us with all the information, so we need Tonde close to us. You should be thanking Tonde because everything is circuitica nyore.
Neni Osekun, I just remembered that I have a friend at Nyarazo. Maybe I can help if Tonde can't find his phone.
Introducing Sawi, the chatbot from Nyarazo. Speak to Sawi for all your queries and inquiries. The benefits of having Sawi by your side are endless. When you need to know about our policy, Nyarazo products, payment platforms, claims, the Sawira International Plan, where to find the Nyarazo branches, Nyarazo contact details, how to apply, and any questions you may have. And she can help you find who you want to speak to. For your convenience, you can ask about anything, from our funeral services, counseling to your payments, and much more. Experience the benefit of having Sawi by your side. App Sawi today on WhatsApp number 0712 992 892. Nyarazo, Sawira Mukuru, Omgane Omkulu.
Welcome back. You guys got quite excited at the end of that segment. I hope you've chilled. And you know something I've noticed, Tinashe? Every time you wear pink pants, you're ungovernable.
It's not pink, but anyway, go ahead.
They're pink.
What color is it?
Thank you. We have a lady on the set. What color is that?
What color is it?
Oh,
I'm not saying it's pink, but I want to know.
Is that turquoise? What is it?
He's probably going to tell you the whole blush or bash or salmon.
Salmon.
So I don't know this whole.
What color salmon?
I have no idea. I'm colorblind.
It's pink. Okay. Anyway, welcome back.
So only uncomfortable when you're around, George. So I think, he's a great host, a better host than you. So next time I think you should switch sides. Let's see what happens.
I think we should look at how long the episodes were when I wasn't here. And let's go back to the script and the aspiration. And we'll see whether you're more or less governable when I'm not here. Anyway, this week, our Minister of Finance makes an announcement. Okay, so maybe roll back. Last week, it turns out that supermarket shelves are getting emptier, the rate is moving, and lo and behold, some products are only purchasable in hard currency in the supermarket. So this week, Bana Still, go further back. We've been told that there's people that are borrowing money and fueling the parallel market rate, and they're doing all these nefarious activities. They're going to be investigated and named and shamed. Not sure whether they were actually ever named or shamed. But anyway, run a few weeks. Now the Minister of Finance says, hey, the problem is there are these people that are selling things to the government at inflated prices. They then take this money and go and trade the parallel market. They use the word black market. They go and trade on the black market, drive the rate, and we're going to catch them, cancel their licenses, and they'll forfeit their money to the state.
So, okay.
What do we make of this?
So I've applied my mind to this because I've been,
You actually bothered to, sorry.
Yes. Because we've seen this, kind of irrational policy action over the last 18 months or so. And I've been struggling to understand what the motivation or basis is for it. And the conclusion I've come to is that it's performative. Basically, and
I agree.
The fundamentals are obvious to anybody who has a basic understanding of finance and economics, and the government has decided that they're not going to have an honest conversation about the fundamentals, and because they're not prepared to have that conversation, there has to be on an ongoing basis distractions, bogeymen, scapegoats, alternative explanations. And so it's performative. This is not actually about the issues. This is just about trying to get the attention of the public away from the fundamentals. Because it doesn't make any sense that. So, for example, the way you articulated it, why would you be paying more if you know that a supplier is overcharging you? Why would you accept that? Why would you tolerate that? Why would you have to make an announcement?
I think the problem is the funding model. I think it was Brains Michema who raised this issue, that anywhere else in the world, you raise 15, 25-year money to build infrastructure. But Zimbabwe is using short-term money to build the infrastructure. So you end up
That's generous. They're not even using short-term money. They're just printing.
You see, I'm actually surprised, Tinashe, at you being you, that you're even going down this road of trying to make sense of this statement.
It's performative.
No, I'm actually agreeing with him, but I'm saying that the core problem is they're printing money to build all this infrastructure. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, and this is just a song and dance for us, for maybe some.
It's not for us because they know that we don't buy it. It's for the masses.
But aren't we buying it?
Oh no!
Yeah, it's for the masses.
Aren't we buying it?
No, it's for the.
Are you buying it?
Well, we all living day to day. We talk about it, and life goes on.
So you think Mazoe is in US dollars on the shelf?
Because Schweppes is trying to sabotage the economy.
No, not Schweppes. Because some guy who's building a dam for the government got paid, and then he went and. What did he do to make the Schweppes, the Mazoe price in US dollars?
So no one's going to think that. I certainly won't think that. But I'm going to need Mazoe.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
And I'm going to go and buy Mazoe.
Yes.
I'm not going to think of all that because the charade has been playing for so long.
You don't.
And people have just let it keep playing.
So nobody cares, is what you say?
Yeah, I think nobody cares.
So why does he bother?
It's performative.
So why does he bother if nobody cares?
No.
People care. I think this rarefied air that we're breathing and drinking fancy tea and Kenyan wine is not doesn't speak to the majority of Zimbabweans.
So you think there's Zimbabweans who believe that there's a guy building a dam who's causing Mazoe to be sold in US dollars?
They might not believe it, but they certainly don't have the understanding of the nuances and impact of monetary policy and fiscal policy that we have.
And what is propaganda?
Do you think they question it?
No, they don't.
I don't think so.
They don't. And
so you think they're winning?
No, they are not winning. The purpose is not to win. The purpose is just purely to do a song and dance,
let me
and
put
then
it,
you move on.
Let me put it into perspective.
I'm going back to the Congo.
Let me put it into perspective, right?
Like
you've got to straightforward. In a first world country with per capita income of $50,000 a year, right? You have, 30-40% of the population believing that Obama was born in Kenya. Okay, so this is just how powerful misinformation is. So why do you think that doesn't work here?
I think that's a disingenuous argument. I mean, he's Kenyan, right?
I think your point is made.
His father was Kenyan. What I mean,
where was he born?
He wasn't
born in Kenya, but
he wasn't born in Kenya.
But people see the word Kenya and they can relate to it.
First, his name is Obama, right? First, his name is Obama. Second, his father is Kenyan.
Yeah.
I think it's only natural that people would.
And even if I see Kenya related to him,
and I think that it's quite.
You know what I feel so funny about this is that you are actually making Rufaro's point for him.
No, it means you're not getting the point. The point is, I think she gets it, and everybody.
The point is reasonable. The people can believe things that are.
The point is up until you tell me, right, that this guy called Osama, that somebody's spiking his too. Until you tell me that this guy called Obama, whose father was Kenyan, was actually born in America. Yeah, I think it's very reasonable.
Are you aware that you can't run for president in the US if you weren't born in the country?
Which is perfectly fine.
Those are the guys. You're going down a rabbit hole.
You're just substantiating.
You're going down a rabbit hole. So let's go back to this.
So the point I was making is that it's performative because there's an audience of Zimbabweans. There's an audience of Zimbabweans that is amenable to either believing these explanations or being confused by them.
So basically what you guys, and you seem to be in agreement,
is that the majority?
Is that, look, this is
not necessarily the majority, but a lot of people.
Okay, well,
there's a significant number.
And let's not even go down that rabbit hole. The point you guys are making is, look, they probably...
I actually quite like his argument. That it's actually about confusing.
Can I anchor the show?
No, because you're missing his point.
No, I was actually
confuse. It's actually to confuse.
That's what I was about to say. That you guys are actually in consensus that, look, they know what they're doing. They're buying time, and they're going to sell stories while they're doing that.
Yes, that's
to confuse.
That's to distill what you said to one word: performative.
Okay. Thank you. And I think this is a good place for us to end the show before this further degenerates and we start talking about Osama bin Laden and
that would have been interesting.
All sorts of other madness.
I mean, nobody had heard Obama, the name Obama. I mean, you're an American, then you hear Obama.
I know, right?
Can I wind up
and
the show?
And then you're told he's
Kenyan.
He's Kenyan. Like, why wouldn't you believe that?
Tinashe, would you like to anchor the show next week?
Until you're given contrary information. I think where I sort of agree with you.
Tinashe?
We're waiting to be made.
No, we're waiting up the show. No, this is like a complete rabbit hole. No, we're not doing that. We're going to wind up the show. It's 2 minutes. It's great that I'm back.
After being given evidence that the guy was actually born in America, that you still believe he wasn't born in America.
You guys,
and I think that's where you would have a problem, and I would agree with you.
Tinashe,
but
you guys can have a rabbit hole episode on Joseph Goebbels, propaganda, Osama, Obama, whatever you like. But it's been lovely having you guys along.
It's been lovely having you back.
Cheers. Great to be back. Cheers.
Cheers.
And yeah, nice to have you again, Debbie.
Yes. Well,
yeah, always a pleasure. Yeah. Always a pleasure.
It was good to be back. Well, and by the way, George, you look into somebody's eyes and drink before you put it down. So don't you cheers me and not look at me. Thank you.
Sorry. Even I know that.
It's been good having you along. As usual, you really shouldn't take us too seriously. As you can see, we really have no idea what we're talking about. We're just friends having a a drink, chatting about the world's problems and trying to see if we can find some solutions. What we hope is that we inspire you to think about some of these things, to discuss them with people around you, and if you have access to policymakers, to raise some of the issues with them. Have a nice weekend, stay safe, be good. If you can't be good at it.